Here we're going to look at topic 97, example 3, evaluate logarithms. So the question, what is the value of each logarithmic expression? So we have log base 5 of 125 equals, we'll say x. We're looking at a question mark. Okay. You can use x, you can use a question mark, whatever you want. But remember, we're asking ourselves 5, so this base of 5 raised to what power is going to be equal to 125. Now, you could use a calculator and kind of figure this out and practice a couple problems and do like 5 to the first, 5 to the second, 5 to the third, and so on. But what we're looking for here is we want to know what that question mark would be. So in this case, 5 raised to the third power is equal to 125. So I would just rewrite that, and I would say 5 raised to the third power is equal to 125. So my question mark in this case is I would just say that this is equal to 3. Again, I'm going to keep these ones pretty simple like I have in the previous videos. We're just kind of thinking through this process of taking bases and raising them to specific powers to figure out what our exponent in this case would be. So in part B, we now have 1/4 raised to some power has to be equal to 16. Right. Now, this is one where we want to be a little careful when we're thinking about the exponents here. The 1 being in the numerator is quite helpful for us. Think about if the 1 wasn't there. 4 raised to what power is 16? 4 raised to the second power would be 16. So we're probably going to be using a 2 here. So I'm going to have 1/4 raised to the second power equals 16. However, 1/4 squared does not give me 16. Since the 4 is in the denominator, maybe you remember rules of exponents quite well, but to kind of flip things around or move things around, you would use negative exponents. So in this case, part B, we have log base 1/4 of 16 would be equal to -2. Right. So we want to be a little careful with our exponents, especially when we're dealing with these fractions here. The nice thing is like they're pretty consistent. Like if you look at number 16 or 19 here, it's going to be 1 over something very frequently. So kind of keep in mind, fractions generally might mix in some negative exponents. So keep that in the back of your head, in the back of your mind, so that you're aware of it if it ever happens. In part C, we're going to take, again, this base of 3. So we're going to do 3 raised to what power gets us 0? Well, you can't raise 3 to any power to get 0. So that power does not exist. So this specific one would be undefined. Okay. You can't raise any number to a power. You can't raise a 3 to a power that'll get you 0. So part C would be undefined. And then finally in part D, actually need to fix this. They ask you in a tricky way. So this is an original question. It should be log base 2 of 2 to the 8th power. Okay. So this is, I don't like questions like this, right? They look tricky, but they're actually quite simple. So we're looking at this 2, this base, and we want to know 2 raised to what power is equal to 2 to the 8th. Well, our bases are already the same, right? We have a 2 and a 2. So what does that question mark have to be? Well, it has to be an 8 because they have to be the same on both sides. So this one looks quite tricky because you have, this log of another base and another power. But when you really look at it and you are careful with it, it turns out to be quite simple. So be careful when questions look way more complicated than they are. We kind of have a habit of overcomplicating things, where something like this, if we write it in a good form, it turns out to be a pretty simple problem. Okay. So for A, B, C, and D, this type of problem, we're looking to evaluate them. We're really asking ourselves, what is the exponent? It'll take a little bit of practice, as anything does, but the concept of what you're trying to do is pretty straightforward. You just have to find a way to get it done. That's it for example 3.